have a great time listening to the story. If you enjoy it, don't forget to give me a like, leave a comment, and subscribe. In my previous life, my sister married into the general's manor for less than a year, before dying tragically within the estate. The capital buzzed with all kinds of rumors. Everyone said my sister was wild and reckless, and was killed by General Marcus Way's sword when he had just returned victorious from battle. Not long after, our entire family was executed on charges of colluding with the enemy. Reborn in this life, when the imperial marriage decree was delivered to the Prime Minister's manor, I stepped forward ahead of my sister, facing the eunuch delivering the decree, and said, "I, Luna Maxwell, accept the decree." My sister didn't know that the younger sister she had protected for over 10 years was actually a scheming green tea bitch who knew some martial arts. So in this life, it's my turn to protect her. In my previous life, on a cliff thousands of feet high with howling winds, the old Taoist priest threw me a jade dagger that pierced 3 inches into my chest. You can return, but I must remind you of one thing. The Tao follows nature. If you obsess too deeply, it will surely bring endless harm. Even destined connections will end early because of this. I said nothing, just gripped the jade dagger and forcefully plunged it into my chest. But the pain wasn't as great as I had imagined. At least, it didn't hurt as much as when I witnessed my sister being violated until death. This life's karma, next life's fruit. When the scar fades is when karma dissipates. The old Taoist sighed, then I lost consciousness. When I opened my eyes, I had returned to the day His Majesty issued the marriage decree. The scar on my chest left by the jade dagger still seemed to burn faintly. Just at that moment, a voice rang out, "Lord Maxwell. This time His Majesty's marriage decree is to reconcile the Maxwell and Way families. I wonder which of the 2 Maxwell daughters will accept the decree." The eunuch delivering the decree had a pale face with delicate features, a sharp voice, and shrewd eyes that swept over my sister and me before finally settling on our father. Our father, usually straight as a pine tree, seemed to bend slightly at this moment. "Lord Maxwell, if you cannot understand His Majesty's painstaking intentions." The eunuch's reminder carried deeper meaning in his words. Hearing this, my sister's face paled, but she still stood up firmly, preparing to step forward and accept the decree. I beat her to it, taking the imperial decree from the eunuch's hands. "I, Luna Maxwell, accept the decree. Thank His Majesty for bestowing this marriage. Luna, do you know what you're doing?" As soon as the eunuch delivering the decree left, my sister's eyes reddened with anger as she scolded me. She rarely got this angry with me. Only when particularly furious would she call me by my full name like now. I looked at my sister standing before me, alive and present, stunned for a long moment before I couldn't help but step forward and embrace her tightly. Only this way could I prove I had truly been reborn, that I still had a chance to change everything that happened in my previous life. Using this trick again. My sister pushed me away but couldn't budge me. While she wasn't paying attention, I secretly wiped away the tear that had just escaped from the corner of my eye before releasing her. "Sister, you know what? It's just marrying that person they call the god of death. So, what? I'll marry him." I pretended to speak lightly. "It's not that simple. Not to mention Marcus, though he hasn't married a primary wife, he already indulges several concubines. Moreover, he's always harbored resentment toward father over old General Way's death. If you marry into that household, you'll surely suffer." My sister hurriedly explained, afraid I didn't understand the extent of the danger, and blurted out these things in her urgency. In my previous life, I was always playing around, enjoying traveling outside, so my sister never told me these things. But this time, when the marriage decree came down, beyond the reluctance of my sister marrying away, I had no idea that the one everyone revered as the god of war had long considered our Maxwell family a thorn in his side. "Sister, if marrying into the general's manor means suffering, then why must it definitely be you who goes?" I looked at her, always calm and gentle, and asked. Because I'm your older sister. Actually, my sister and I aren't birth sisters from the same mother. My mother was originally a maid who served my sister's mother before she married. Later, when my sister's mother married father and became pregnant, she had father take my mother as a concubine. My sister's mother gave birth to my sister and named her Serena Maxwell. My mother named me Luna Maxwell, saying she hoped I would always look toward my sister. When I was 6 years old, my sister's mother fell gravely ill. Father invited all the famous doctors to the Prime Minister's manor, but my sister's mother's health continued to decline, her spirit gradually fading. I once visited my sister's mother on her sickbed. She held my mother's hand and weakly said, "Sister, the two children are still so young, and the master has such a rigid nature. In the future, everything in this household will depend on you." My mother said nothing, just with reddened eyes carefully fed her medicine spoon by spoon, then used a silk handkerchief to gently wipe away the medicine drops remaining on her lips. Not long after, my sister's mother passed away. My mother quietly handled the funeral arrangements, then also dressed in white and followed her. Father's black hair gained several silver strands that year. From then on, father never remarried. The capital secretly gossiped that father brought death to his wives, losing 2 wives in just 1 year. But no one dared say it directly to his face. That year, my sister was 7, only 1 year older than me. She held my hand like a little adult and seriously said, "Little sister, from now on I'll take care of you." And that care lasted for 10 years, until she married out, even carefully preparing a foray for me. So in this life, anyone who once hurt my sister, I will make them pay a price more painful than death. I'll enter the palace, to plead with His Majesty to retract the decree. Father changed into court dress and called the butler to prepare the carriage for entering the palace. I stopped him. In my previous life, Father knelt in the rain and snow before the Hall of Brightness for 3 night watches, but His Majesty still didn't retract the decree, instead flying into a rage and docking Father's salary for half a year. "Father, His Majesty has already issued the decree. He won't retract it. You going now will only give others ammunition to attack you." Father had been upright all his life, never forming cliques or factions, always loyal to the monarch, so he was often criticized by others as dictatorial. Hearing my words, Father suddenly stopped, his eyes full of doubt as he asked, "Luna, you've never paid much attention to these matters before. Has something happened?" My sister also asked tensely, "That's right, little sister. You seem unusual today. Your temperament is usually soft. Has someone bullied you?" "Me, soft temperament. I just like to act spoiled with them." Seeing their scrutiny, I understood that to get them to agree to let me marry Marcus, I needed to find a reasonable excuse. A few days ago when I was in Ping City viewing the lanterns, I encountered mountain bandits on the road. Just at that moment, General Wei passed by. His bearing was handsome, his eyes bright. He single-handedly drove off all the mountain bandits. I pretended to be shy. "So, I want to marry him." Hearing my words, Father and my sister looked at each other with some doubt, but seeing me blush like this, it didn't seem fake. Father pondered. It was indeed true that Marcus had eliminated mountain bandits in Ping City a few days ago. My sister also mused, "Little sister, you do indeed love watching lanterns." After a moment, as if suddenly realizing something, she angrily said, "You encountered mountain bandits and didn't tell me. Were you hurt anywhere?" "How could I be hurt? Those 10 or so mountain bandits weren't enough to trouble me. In the end, I tied them up like pastries and hung them from trees to blow in the wind for 2 whole days. In the end, this marriage was still decided. The night before the wedding, my sister brought me a stack of land deeds, the dowry our mother had left behind. "Sister, your dowry is already generous enough. Keep some for yourself." Looking at the courtyard full of red sandalwood trunks, I felt a pang in my heart and pushed the stack of deeds back toward her. But my sister stubbornly refused to take them back. "My little sister is marrying out, no amount of dowry is too much. Now you're marrying into the general's manor, and I'm truly worried." Seeing the worry gleaming in her eyes again, I changed the subject. "Sister, I'm the younger sister yet marrying out before you. When will you marry? Do you already have someone in your heart that you haven't told me about?" "What nonsense are you talking about now?" My sister lightly punched me, but then, not knowing what she thought of, her face flushed like peach blossoms blooming in spring. In my previous life, I never knew that at this time my sister already had someone in her heart. It was a scholar surnamed Lai. Scholar Li came from a humble background with no notable connections, his nature somewhat genuine but more talented than others. My sister liked him very much, but after the marriage decree was issued, she had to marry Marcus. Later, that genuine scholar became the Tanhua, 3rd place in imperial examinations. After my sister died tragically and the Prime Minister's manor fell into turmoil, everyone was busy protecting themselves. Only this simple Tanhua dared to speak up for father, seeking evidence to overturn the case against the Maxwell family. Everyone said this Tanhua was truly mad, having struggled from a commoner in plain clothes to become heaven's favorite, yet deliberately seeking death. His Majesty also flew into a rage and demoted his official rank by 3 levels. Thinking of this, I looked at my sister before me, usually elegant and dignified, now unconsciously revealing a maiden's shyness from thinking of her beloved. Sister, I want you to be happy. In this life, I'll shelter you from wind and rain. On the wedding night, red candles burned high, wax dripping down like tears. The wedding nanny brought me to the edge of the marriage bed and left. When the sound of footsteps gradually faded, I lifted the red veil covering my head. I knew Marcus wouldn't come. Though this marriage was decreed by His Majesty, it was extremely simple, not even matching a normal official's wedding ceremony. In my previous life, I was indignant on my sister's behalf about this. She had comforted me, saying that the Prime Minister's manor marrying into the General's manor was already a tall tree catching the wind. The more low-key the ceremony, the better. I believed it then. Thinking back now, this was just Marcus deliberately making things difficult for the Prime Minister's manor. I surveyed this room, apart from a few happiness characters pasted hastily and 2 red candles, nothing resembled a bridal chamber. Before I left the manor, Marcus had sent word that he didn't want many outsiders entering the Way Manor. Meaning by this, no maids from the Maxwell manor were allowed to be brought along. In my previous life, my sister didn't even bring Spring Peach, who was by her side, and even told me that the General's manor had already made proper arrangements. Looking back now, such clumsy lies, yet I believed them. I took some food from the table, removed the heavy wedding dress, extinguished half the candles, then got into bed to sleep. 2 hours later, a very small sound came from the corner window. With many years of martial arts training, I immediately woke up but kept my eyes closed. The person outside the window peered into the room, seeing the figure on the bed breathing evenly as if in deep sleep. After a moment of silence, they chuckled softly. She really does have a remarkably broad heart. Early the next morning, a matron from the General's manor led several young maids to knock on the door. "Madam, we've come to help you with your makeup. Come in." I had already changed into a light green silk dress with wide, flowing sleeves. The hem and sleeves were embroidered with ivory, colored wave patterns. I was sitting before the dressing mirror. As they filed in one by one, the head matron looked at me and froze. The maids following also exchanged glances. A young maid at the very back couldn't help whispering to the one beside her, "Madame is so beautiful." The maid beside her immediately nudged her lightly, and the girl hurriedly lowered her head. Yesterday when I entered the Way Manor, my head was still covered with a veil, so no one saw my face clearly. They only knew the new bride spent her wedding night with the General not coming to her room. For a new bride, this was the greatest humiliation. People in the manor gossiped, wondering if it was because I was too ugly that the General was so disgusted. I pretended not to notice, looking at the matron who was still frozen and asking, "Matron, is something wrong?" "No, nothing. This servant has come to do your makeup." She smiled and began applying my makeup. Half an hour later, I admired myself in the bronze mirror, curved brows like the full moon, rosy lips adorned, hair styled in a way I'd never seen before but perfectly matching the blue-green outfit I wore today, looking both lively yet not casual. "Madame is truly beautiful. This servant hasn't seen anyone with such stunning features in a long time." The makeup matron standing beside me praised repeatedly. I smiled and asked, "What's matron's surname?" "This servant is surnamed Li." "Matron Li, this is your reward money. Take it and share with everyone today." I handed out a brocade pouch I had prepared, containing several gold pieces shaped like peanuts, little pigs, and ingots. Matron Li was somewhat surprised to see me being so generous. The maids standing beside also froze, then unanimously expressed their thanks. In the inner quarters, to win people's hearts, one must know how to share benefits. In just a moment, news that the General's new wife was not only exceptionally beautiful but also very generous spread throughout the General's manor. I leisurely walked to the tea room where Marcus's concubines were waiting to serve tea to the new primary wife me. Marcus had 2 concubines. One was the dancer Grace, gifted by His Majesty. She had once performed a stepping dance at the Qionglan banquet, causing the romantic scholars there to create an uproar composing poems in praise. The other was Sophia Su. It was said she once saved Marcus's life at the border and thus gained favor. Why hasn't the new madam arrived yet? Our young lady's health is weak and needs to take medicine soon. As I reached the door, an impatient voice came from inside. I slightly curved my lips, my chest once again burned like fire, the scar making me even more alert. Matron Lu, I'm fine. We can wait a bit longer. The gentle, soft voice belonged to the one replying to Matron Lu. But Matron Lu became even more dissatisfied. What could she possibly be busy with? Probably just busy trying to win people over in the manor. But our general doesn't care about such things. He didn't even visit her room on their wedding night. Inside, they were gleefully gossiping about me, the wife unloved by the general. Just at this moment, I heard two people approaching from behind toward here. Their footsteps weren't chaotic but very rhythmic, like they had been trained, surely military personnel. The actors were in position, time for the good show to begin. You all seem very cheerful. May I join in? As I spoke, I smiled while quietly assessing the people in the room. On the right was a woman with a charming, clever appearance and graceful figure, surely Grace, one of Marcus's concubines. On the other side was a gentle, delicate woman with soft rain, like gentleness between her brows that made one feel protective. This was Sophia, the one Marcus loved most. Behind her was a woman in her 40s, probably Matron Lu. The three people in the room were momentarily stunned when I suddenly entered. Upon recognizing me, each quickly adjusted their expressions, though they still couldn't completely hide their slight awkwardness, especially Matron Lu, probably because I had overheard their earlier gossip. Sophia was the first to speak, gently asking, "Is this the new madam?" I raised my hand to stop her, looking directly at Matron Lu behind her and asking, "Matron Lu, were you just discussing how the general didn't come to my room last night?" "No, perhaps." Maybe not expecting me to be so direct, the room fell silent for a moment. Finally, Sophia spoke up to mediate. "Madam, please don't be angry. Matron Lu has been Marcus's wet nurse since childhood and has always been devoted, so she treats Marcus like her own son." The way she intimately called him, Marcus, emphasized her special place in Marcus's heart. On the other hand, she implied that Matron Lu was his wet nurse while I was just the new wife unloved by the general. How dare I do anything to her? I remembered in my previous life, my sister probably also went through these things. With my sister's personality, she certainly wouldn't fuss over such small matters. But I'm different, I'm a genuine scheming green tea bitch. The footsteps outside stopped about 10 feet from the door, apparently waiting to watch this show. But to watch a play, one always has to pay some entrance fee. Sophia, how could I be angry with Matron Lu? I'm just worried for her. I pretended not to understand and sighed. If Matron Lu gossips behind backs saying the general has a hidden illness, what if it reaches the general's ears? I'm afraid that wouldn't be good. Matron Lu's face instantly turned the color of pig liver. She spoke through gritted teeth. This old servant said the general has a hidden illness. When? Just now. You said the general didn't come on the wedding night. Oh, you know good news travels slowly but bad news travels 1,000 miles. If later when the general goes to the battlefield, and is mocked by enemies saying he's impotent, what then? Matron Lu was so angry she was speechless, only able to let out, "You." Just at that moment, the footsteps outside rang out loudly again. "Have you caused enough trouble?" A deep voice tinged with anger sounded from behind me. In my heart I answered, "Of course not enough. You're all the ones who killed me and my sister. I won't let a single one of you go." "General." Everyone who had been gleefully gossiping, upon hearing his voice, became frightened at this moment. When they reacted, they immediately stood up to bow to Marcus. Only Sophia didn't bow. Her eyes were gentle and warm as she called out, "Marcus, you've come." I also turned around to look at this husband of mine in this life. Marcus had a face like fine jade, thin lips slightly pressed together. Perhaps from years on the battlefield, even without wearing armor, he still carried a thread of cold killing intent. This wasn't my first time meeting Marcus. In my previous life, after my sister died and our whole family was thrown into prison, I escaped capture because I was traveling outside. I disguised myself and snuck into the general's manor to investigate the cause of my sister's death, but was discovered by Marcus. After several rounds of combat, he suddenly stopped his sword and said, "It's you." I ignored him, using misdirection. He threw several smoke bombs, and in the thick smoke I escaped from the general's manor. I always clearly remembered his eyes, cold as an icy abyss. Even in the darkness, just one glance was enough to feel the chill. But now I pretended this was my first time seeing him, bringing a smile as I looked at him. "Greetings, General Wei. I am your newly wedded wife, Luna Maxwell." For a moment, the room fell silent. Marcus's gaze fell on me and suddenly paused for a moment, looking at me with a searching, studying gaze. My heart jumped. Could he also have memories of the previous life? But then he immediately walked past me without any reaction. I remained still, thinking about what his intentions were while quietly gathering energy in my hands. Myo territory echo, conducting insects are divided into child and mother insects. This is a child insect, it transmits sound to the mother insect. The Myo territory has secret techniques to counter this type of insect. So the previous dynasty's emperor expelled people who raised insects and trained practitioners to gather information. Marcus's voice sounded by my ear, showing his thorough knowledge of worldly matters. I looked up at him. "So you also know that Grace Jiao used pearls to poison Sophia?" He laughed softly. "You know quite a lot too. The current emperor suspects me. In the darkness and light, he has arranged many people to monitor. He placed Grace in an obvious position for me to track down those hidden in the shadows. He knew that the person placed obviously was the one most likely to make others lower their guard. Moreover, Grace rarely appeared, so no one could investigate anything from her. Therefore, I had no way to deal with her. So he had always known Grace used ancient insects to pass information to His Majesty. In my previous life, when Marcus went on campaign, Grace was just reporting secret information to His Majesty. My sister's handkerchief was blown by wind and fell at Grace's door. So Grace concluded that my sister knew her secret. Though my sister wasn't favored and rarely had contact with Marcus, she still felt uneasy. When she discovered Sophia intended to harm my sister, Grace added fuel to the fire, making the flames of jealousy burn even brighter. Only a dead person's mouth could make others feel at ease. "I'm sorry, Madam in the Nine Springs, please don't blame me." Grace had given Sophia a bottle of secret medicine from Miao territory. This medicine caused the entire body to ulcerate, looking like death from venereal disease caught in brothels. In less than a month, death would come in an extremely miserable state. I looked at Marcus. "So now General has a reason to deal with Grace, right? How laughable, everyone has their own calculations. Only my sister became the sacrifice." Marcus saw the sarcasm on my face and was slightly surprised. "Aren't you happy? What's there to be unhappy about? In this life, I personally laid the trap, watching the murderers step by step into the net. What else could I be dissatisfied with?" "General is overthinking," I answered indifferently. Grace was confined within the manor. Marcus reported to His Majesty about her vicious behavior in the manor, plotting to harm wives and concubines. After some deliberation, His Majesty coldly ordered death by poison, like brushing away an insignificant speck of dust. That day dark clouds covered the capital. The sky seemed about to rain heavily but lingered without falling. I brought His Majesty's decree along with white silk, a jade dagger, and poison to Grace. She was walking barefoot, humming a song, seemingly unconcerned about her impending death. Once departing, willows cast green shadows. Now I come to visit. Rain and snow flutter. I had known she danced well but didn't know she also sang beautifully. Her voice was light like gently plucked strings, the clear sound penetrating one's heart. I placed the items on the desk and quietly listened to her finish singing. As the song ended, she suddenly burst into laughter, not like her usual humble daily demeanor, but shining with a bit of vitality. "Madam, do I sleep well?" I honestly replied. "Beautifully. I've never heard anyone sing so beautifully." Hearing this, Grace smiled even more brightly, seeming somewhat pleased. That person also once said the same thing. Her gaze looked distantly out the window, carrying distance and nostalgia, as if someone was waiting there for her along with beautiful memories, or perhaps there was nothing at all. Slowly her gaze returned to the desk. She picked up the small green medicine bottle with her hand, admiring it casually as if it weren't poison but a pretty ornament. "It's ephemeral joy," she said softly. "Good thing it's not Crane's Crown Red. I hate Crane's Crown Red the most. Crane's Crown Red causes bleeding from all 7 orifices when consumed, dying in an extremely tragic state. But ephemeral joy was a secret poison of the Mayo people. Drinking it makes one sink into a long dream, just never to wake again. This was perhaps the last bit of gentleness from that person for her. Madam, there's still some tranquility incense in that trunk left for you to use. Grace drank all the poison in her hand, pointing to the incense basket in the room. I'm good at mixing poisons and also good at making incense. Everyone thinks the incense I make must be poisonous. Only you dared use my incense. How nice. Perhaps the medicine was beginning to take effect, her voice gradually lowered. Since entering this manor, I couldn't sleep peacefully. Making tranquility incense was just so I could sleep well. At this moment, lightning cut across the sky outside, thunder rumbled, then heavy rain poured down. But the person before me had already stopped breathing. I didn't tell her that the day she used the secret messages in the manor to report to His Majesty. The shadow that flashed by the door was me, and Sophia's earring was deliberately left at her door by me. After Grace died, the scar on my chest also faded slightly. I still handled her funeral affairs according to the proper rites for a concubine in the general's manor, only telling outsiders that she died of serious illness. Outsiders hearing of the sudden death of a famous dancer who once shook the capital years ago only sighed with emotion. Beautiful women have tragic fates. Sophia's poison was also cured. As soon as she could get out of bed, she immediately dragged her sick body to my courtyard. Madam, at that time I was just too frightened and misunderstood you. I deserve death. She wore white clothes, looking weak and fragile like a beautiful mountain branch lost in the wind, making others unable to help feeling sympathy. Using this trick again, I both detested her and found her laughable. At some point, Marcus had also entered my courtyard. Seeing this scene, he scolded her, making trouble. But he still immediately took off his outer robe and tightly wrapped it around her, afraid the cold wind would harm the person in his heart. So it turns out tricks don't need to be new, just skillfully used is enough. My heart grew even colder, but I still pretended to smile. The wind is strong, General. Quickly take Sophia back. Don't let her obstruct my eyes here. Half a month later, my sister would marry Scholarly. In this life she would finally have a worthy husband. I wanted to quickly prepare betrothal gifts to send her off for marriage. When I was about to close the door and refuse visitors, Marcus called me back. He seemed somewhat awkward as he said, "In half a month, I'll accompany you back to the Maxwell Manor. Your sister is getting married. If you return alone, people will gossip. I'll go need." Perhaps not expecting my quick refusal, he was somewhat stunned. I thought for a moment, knowing now wasn't the time to completely fall out with him, so I softened my tone. "General, if you go there, I'm afraid you'll overshadow the groom." Hearing this, he was silent for a moment before leaving, not knowing if he believed my words or not. My sister's wedding wasn't overly extravagant. On the century-old tree at the general's manor hung full red silk screens. My sister wore wedding clothes embroidered with dragon and phoenix patterns, sitting before the bronze mirror. I helped my sister with her makeup, softly chanting, "First calming, all things harmonious. Second calming, all illnesses dissipate. Third calming, divine blessings arrive early." My sister's eyes gradually reddened, wanting to say something but ultimately remaining silent. I gently embraced my sister like in our childhood days. "Sister, don't cry. From now on the road ahead will be smooth." Outside, gongs and drums resounded. Firecrackers exploded continuously. It was the Lee family coming to receive the bride. The groom distributed candy to the children who loved excitement at the door. The usually dry and simple scholar now had a bright smile on his face. Colleagues in the manor teased that even when he passed the imperial exam as Tanhua, he wasn't this happy. He didn't mind, just preciously held my sister's hand, gently helping my sister onto the flower sedan chair. How wonderful, finally my sister had obtained happiness that belonged to her. Perhaps feeling somewhat relieved in my heart, I drank a bit too much. When leaving the Prime Minister's manor, Father wanted to arrange someone to escort me, but I stopped him. I wanted to walk alone for a while. Just after leaving the gate and turning a corner, I encountered a familiar figure. Perhaps due to being drunk, I blurted out, "Why are you here?" "To pick you up and return to the manor. You didn't want me attending your sister's wedding ceremony, so I waited here." That person stood tall and composed. "You've been drinking." I waved my hand. "Those few cups of wine can't make me drunk." Along the way, Marcus and I were both silent, neither of us speaking. I felt that sometimes he truly was incomprehensible. Late at night, the roads were empty with few passers-by. The street vendors had also packed up their stalls and gone home. Only one lantern seller remained, an old man over 70 still trying hard to call out loudly, inviting customers. "Noble sir, buy some lanterns." The old man seemed to have mobility issues, his voice also somewhat hoarse. Seeing us approach, he enthusiastically introduced the lanterns he had made himself. I glanced over. These lanterns, though not as large and ornate as the big lanterns, were very exquisite. Marcus walked to the stall, selected a lantern, then gave the old man a silver ingot. "Rest early, old sir." The old man seemed very surprised to meet such a generous customer, continuously thanking him excitedly. "Thank you, noble sir. Thank you, noble sir." Marcus waved his hand and turned, carrying the lantern toward me. In the darkness, he wore white long robes, his bearing elegant as living jade. I couldn't help but sigh inwardly, this person truly had exceptional looks. Then he brought the lantern before me. "For you." I was surprised. "Hem," Marcus explained. "Don't you like lanterns? This is for you." How did he know I liked lanterns? His eyes and ears truly spread everywhere. I looked at the fox-shaped lantern, shook my head with a laugh, and pointed to the rabbit-shaped lantern on the stall. "I'm a rabbit. If you're giving a gift, it should be a rabbit lantern. A fox's eyes are sharper, more like you." Marcus slowly said this sentence, then continued walking as if nothing had happened. The bit of alcohol in me hadn't completely worn off, but hearing these words, I immediately sobered up. Looking at his retreating figure, I pondered what he meant by this. War in the northwest suddenly broke out. Marcus received orders from His Majesty to lead troops on campaign. Before leaving, he gently placed a hairpin in my hair bun and softly said, "Wait for me to return. I have something to tell you." Everyone around in the manor lowered their heads. The bolder ones only bent down slightly, you could see them secretly smiling, corners of their mouths lifted. Only Sophia stood motionless, her gaze misty with a touch of melancholy. I just nodded to Marcus, but paid little attention in my heart. By the time he returned, it might already be another story. After Marcus left, the general's manor became as quiet as still water without any ripples. Matron Lu had been expelled from the manor. Grace had committed suicide by poison. Only Sophia remained in understanding Moon Pavilion, always keeping her doors closed. I raised my head to look at the deep blue sky. Gray clouds drifted from the mountain direction. My heart was probably as gloomy as this sky. Marcus had been gone for 3 months. According to the development in my previous life, he would return to the manor in another month. As for me, dreams of my previous life appeared more and more frequently. In my dreams, sometime after Marcus went on campaign, Sophia entered the general's manor's rear courtyard. She overheard inside admonishing a young maid. "Madame has a gentle temperament, but her matters cannot be delayed. Don't learn from others with limited knowledge. Madame is after all the Prime Minister's daughter, born with beautiful features and gentle manners. In the future she might well be favored by the general." Hearing this, Sophia's expression grew worse. She lowered her voice and said, "No one can take away my Marcus. Born of noble status with exceptional looks, so what? I'll make you roll in the mud, never able to raise your head for eternity." Matron Lu beside her was frightened by her appearance and said, "Young lady, please don't listen to that old woman's nonsense." But Sophia directly interrupted. "Grace already gave me a bottle of medicine. Matron Lu, you help me with this matter." Hearing this, Matron Lu hesitated for a moment then said, "Young lady, this matter still needs reconsideration. Matron Lu, I heard your son recently lacks money for gambling debts. If you don't help me this time, when it comes time for him to pay those debts." Hearing these words, Matron Lu thought for a moment, then gritted her teeth and agreed. "So I witnessed them putting drugs in my sister's food. From then on, my sister fell into a comatose state every night, no longer conscious. Then Matron Lu's son Li Sheng entered my sister's room every night, leaving the next morning with a sweaty body full of satisfaction. Before long, my sister began showing signs of pregnancy, her consciousness becoming increasingly hazy, unable to stay lucid for even a few hours each day. Marcus is about to return. You should leave." Sophia looked at my sister lying on the bed, no longer conscious, then poured Grace's medicine into my sister's mouth and used a silk handkerchief to wipe her hands. "I heard this medicine can make people ulcerate all over their body, looking like they died from contracting disease in the pleasure quarters. Madam, go peacefully." Sophia showed a vicious smile, her sinister expression terrifying. I startled awake from the dream, my chest burning like fire. The pain penetrated to the bone marrow. At the same time, burning hatred surged in my heart, making me want to immediately go to Understanding Moon Pavilion and tear that person to pieces. Today, after many days without going out, Sophia suddenly came to my courtyard. "Madame, last night I dreamed the general was injured on the battlefield outside. My spirit is uneasy. I want to go to Universal Compassion Temple outside the city to pray for the general. I wonder if Madame would like to come along." I remembered the unwritten rule in court. When a husband campaigns far away, if a wife or concubine dreams of bad omens about the husband, they must go to temples to pray for the husband's safety. Sophia worries for the general, so I naturally agree to go together. On this trip, Universal Compassion Temple was located on a mountain in the capital's outskirts. The incense here couldn't compare with temples in the city, but it was more tranquil. Along the blue stone path, pine, cypress, and green bamboo intermingled. Temple buildings appeared faintly. Bell sounds echoed from the mountaintop. Incense smoke gently rose, filling the surrounding temple's space. Sophia bowed 3 times very devoutly before each Buddha statue in the temple. After she finished worshipping, the sky had already darkened. At this time, it was already too late to descend the mountain. Sophia seemed to only realize this at this moment, continuously apologizing to me. "Madam, tonight why don't we rest in the rooms behind the hall, then descend the mountain tomorrow morning?" I smiled lightly. "That's fine." Then the servants went to prepare. The lodging at Universal Compassion Temple was a small building area behind the temple. Inside were 3 rooms, each room hung with a wooden plaque. The wooden plaques respectively read Lotus Residence, Bamboo Residence, and Nature Residence. These were the names of each room. "Madam, please enter first." Sophia led me in first, choosing Lotus Residence on the left for me, while she stayed in Bamboo Residence on the right. At the hour of the dog, close to 8 p.m., monks came bringing vegetarian food and tea. I placed them on the table but hadn't touched them. By the hour of the pig, I extinguished the candles, opened the back window, lightly jumped out, then circled around to Sophia's room. I held my breath, quietly peering through the narrow paper window to observe inside her room. She was holding scissors, cutting candle wicks, her expression somewhat crazed. "He wants to drive me from the manor for you. Then you go die. Marcus, he can only be mine." Without making a sound, I quietly switched the wooden plaques on our room doors, exchanging them for each other. After doing all this, I flew up to the roof to wait for the good show to unfold. The mountains were silent, with only the sounds of wind and insects echoing. The moon overhead still shone brightly. Tonight was a beautiful moonlit night without any darkness. A moment later, at the hour of the rat, a fat figure reeking of alcohol appeared in the courtyard. Under the moonlight, he clearly saw the wooden plaque on the door, then staggered into Lotus Residence. A while later, sounds of porcelain breaking came from inside the room, accompanied by an angry woman's scolding. "You've got the wrong person. She's across the hall." The woman wanted to push out the man, but at this time her whole body was already powerless. The man thought she was deliberately refusing, so he slapped her face hard. "Still trying to trick me? You've already taken the stupefying powder. This is Lotus Residence." This person was really drunk to this degree. Next came sounds of clothes being torn and muffled, chaotic crying. The next day, as light appeared on the eastern horizon, Matron Lu led a group of people aggressively into the courtyard. Right at that time, I was sitting having breakfast. I sipped my tea, not at all surprised by her appearance, even greeting her. "Good morning, Matron Lu." Matron Lu stopped walking. Seeing me so calm, her expression immediately showed doubt, her gaze involuntarily sweeping over the rooms in the courtyard. She only saw one room with doors and windows still tightly shut, and the person she had arranged to come still hadn't appeared. "You." She opened her mouth hesitantly, as if guessing something but unable to believe it, standing there with her face gradually turning pale. The people following behind her saw this and immediately grew suspicious. "Madame Lu, didn't you say you'd bring us to catch adultery? Why are we just standing here?" "That's right, such a high mountain, and we climbed all the way up. You said there would be reward money. You'd better not be trying to renege on the debt. We only work for money, don't try to fool us." The more they spoke, the louder their voices became, afraid Matron Lu would cheat them of money. I smiled slightly, pretending not to understand. "Catch adultery. Reward money, what's this all about?" At this point, Matron Lu was somewhat panicked. She and Sophia had already arranged the plan. Last night I would consume the stupefying powder. Then Li Sheng would take advantage of the darkness to enter my room and violate me, then leave the next morning. She planned to bring people here the next day to make a scene, spreading news that I had lost my virtue. But Li Sheng didn't return all night. She thought he had finished his business and gone down the mountain to gamble. But now I appeared unharmed in the courtyard, while Sophia was nowhere to be seen. Her gaze involuntarily stopped at the door that was still tightly closed, vaguely able to guess what was happening inside that room. If only Sophia encountered trouble, that would be fine. But if her son was still in the room and was discovered, I promised to give you money, so I definitely will. You all leave first. Matron Lu whispered to the people behind her. Knowing these people had loose tongues, she urgently wanted to lead them away. But the entertaining scene hadn't finished playing out. How could I let them leave so easily? I gently waved my hand, preparing to shoot a hidden weapon at the door. Suddenly, the sound of heavy footsteps rang out from outside the courtyard, like drumbeats. Then a figure wearing armor appeared in the courtyard. The newly risen morning sunlight reflected on his armor layer. The sword worn at his waist seemed to have already thirsted for blood, even able to hear vague echoes. It was Marcus. He had actually returned earlier than expected. Marcus swept his gaze around the courtyard, seeing everyone standing frozen without moving. He frowned. Matron Lu, why are you here? Matron Lu hadn't expected Marcus to appear here. Frightened to the point her legs went soft, she could only force an awkward smile. This old servant came to Universal Compassion Temple to worship the gods. Hearing Madame was also here, I wanted to come pay my respects. Before she could finish speaking, from inside the tightly closed room door suddenly came a woman's tragic scream. "Hey!" Matron Lu's face immediately lost all color, becoming deathly pale. Marcus heard the sound and stepped forward, using one foot to kick open the room door. A loud bang rang out as the door burst open. What appeared before their eyes was a man lying spread eagle on the floor, his fat body with flesh piled up like a small mountain. A sharp blade was stuck in his chest. This blade was one Marcus had previously given Sophia for self-defense. Nearby on the bed, Sophia's hair was disheveled, clothes in disarray, hugging her face and crying bitterly. "My son! My son!" Matron Lu saw the scene in the room and instantly staggered, falling onto the man who was already dead. This man's body was already cold and stiff with no life remaining. Marcus looked at the scene in the room, his expression sinking. He walked to the bedside, took a blanket to cover Sophia's body. Sophia slowly raised her head, her misty eyes brimming with tears. "Marcus, I coldly observed everything, feeling stabbing pain in my chest." At this moment, Matron Lu rushed to the bedside, grabbing Sophia's hair. "Was it you? Did you kill my son? Sophia, you're so vicious. It was clearly you." Matron Lu suddenly fell silent. Marcus drew his sword with one stroke, piercing straight through her chest. Matron Lu slowly collapsed to the ground, fresh blood flowing from her mouth. Before dying, she still stared fixedly at Sophia with eyes full of resentment. The people who came with Matron Lu saw this and screamed in panic, scattering in flight, but were already surrounded by soldiers in the courtyard. Looking at this scene, I laughed mockingly. "What's this, General? Are you preparing to kill everyone to silence them?" Marcus glanced at me, then looked at the people who came with Matron Lu. "Today's matter ends here. If anyone dares spread rumors outside, this general absolutely will not forgive. Understand?" His aura was filled with Ashura, like killing intent. These people heard and immediately nodded in unison. At night in the general's manor, the moonlight was cold as water. I had just finished bathing. The scar on my chest seemed to fade even more, only feeling slightly sore. Grace Jiao, Li Sheng, Matron Lu, like in my previous life. For each harm they inflicted on my sister, after they died, the scar in my heart would also gradually fade. When the scar disappears is when karma dissipates. The old Taoist's words seemed to echo by my ear again. Did this sentence mean that when all those who harmed my sister were dead, the scar in my heart would completely disappear? If so, then only Sophia and Marcus remained. Knock, knock, knock. While I was thinking about the next step in my plan, knocking sounded at the door. "Come in." I gathered my hair and put on an outer robe, calmly opening the door. In the room, candlelight danced, casting flickering shadows. It was Marcus. I smiled slightly, but my eyes were cold as I asked, "General, coming at this hour, Are you not planning to silence me? Marcus narrowed his eyes slightly, then turned his head away. Li Sheng was wounded in the chest, stabbed into the heart and lungs, dying instantly. Sophia doesn't know martial arts. It was you who did it, wasn't it? How did he know I knew martial arts? I was somewhat surprised inwardly but didn't deny it. If it was me, is the general here to thank me for not holding past grudges and protecting those you love? That night, Sophia saw Li Sheng drunkenly enter the room and fearfully cried out, warning Li Sheng he had the wrong person. But Li Sheng couldn't hear. Sophia only recognized the Lotus residence plaque. Seeing Sophia say he had the wrong person, he thought she was deliberately speaking nonsense to prepare to escape, so he tore Sophia's outer clothes. And at dinner, I had already drugged her and switched her for what she needed. When Sophia completely lost consciousness in despair, I entered the room and killed Li Sheng. Using the blade Marcus had given Sophia, I viciously stabbed into Li Sheng's chest. In my previous life, it was this despicable man who had defiled my sister's purity. Now I had personally taken his life with my own hands. Marcus saw my cold expression full of hatred and stiffened slightly, then suddenly spoke. I'll send Sophia out of the manor. This time I won't let her appear before you again. I had originally wanted to let Lu and Sophia destroy each other. When she saw her son dead in Sophia's room, she would surely make a scene. But Marcus returned earlier than expected, causing everything to stop with Lu's death. I asked, what if I insist on taking her life? Marcus was silent for a moment, then said, you can't. Sophia was sent out of the manor on a day at the end of March. She no longer looked weak as before, her face sorrowful, voice choked with emotion. Marcus, you promised my brother you would take care of me forever. My brother died saving you. Have you forgotten? Marcus replied in a low voice, I haven't forgotten. Moonview Villa will have people to care for you. This lifetime, you won't have to worry about food and clothing. Sophia clutched at his sleeve, unwilling to let go, tears rolling down her eyes. I don't need others to care for me. I just want to stay by your side. From when I was 12 and first saw you, I've liked you. You can't treat me this way. Marcus patiently removed her hands one by one. You secretly plotted to harm my wife. Leaving you alive is only because you're Qingxing's only sister. But I cannot let you remain in this general's manor. Hearing this, Sophia suddenly burst into laughter. Her laughter somewhat crazed, she pointed at me. Marcus, you're so smart. Can't you see that Luna doesn't love you at all? Only I have foolishly loved you for so many years. Even if just as a concubine, I still want to stay by your side. I watched this scene, feeling no stirring in my heart. Sophia, you want to love someone yet trample on others' lives and others' purity to obtain it, by what right? Marcus glanced at me. Seeing not a trace of disturbance on my face, he slightly curved his lips. Time seemed to pause for a moment. He said in a deep voice, Deputy Yang, escort Miss Su to the villa. Yes. Sophia was forcefully helped onto the carriage heading to the villa, her eyes empty. She said, Marcus, I will make you regret this. Spring wind rose, spring intentions spread. Qingming arrived then quickly passed. Marcus and I each lived in our own worlds, never truly facing each other, as if deliberately avoiding one another. Only occasionally would Deputy Yang bring some novel items and delicious food. Madam, this is Fire Phoenix dance that the general brought back from the northwest. Madam, this is sweet pastry from Auspicious Cloud Tower. All those items I had matronly store in the warehouse. The food was distributed to the maids in the rear courtyard. Tonight, dark clouds covered the moon, finally obscuring it. I wore light clothing, preparing to climb the wall to go out, but encountered Marcus right on top of the wall. Coming back so late, where did you go? I smiled, my hand already drawing my sword. Don't you know? Marcus quickly responded, but the sword in his hand never left its sheath. My sword energy was sharper. Draw your sword. Marcus slowly said. My sword ever not point toward her. Marcus, do you know? These words of yours truly disgust me. I couldn't help but open my mouth to mock him. He tightened his grip on the sword hilt slightly, then withdrew his attacking stance. At the same time my sword was already at his neck. Luna, do you hate me that much? Asked in a low voice. Marcus, you clearly know old General Wei's death wasn't because my father deliberately withheld military supplies, but because the current emperor wanted him dead. In my previous life, to reassure His Majesty, you deliberately pretended not to know, treating the Maxwells as enemies. When my sister entered the manor, you left her to endure loneliness, letting her die in pain. You clearly knew what happened at Universal Compassion Temple was Sophia's doing, yet still let her leave. In my previous life, you probably also clearly knew my sister's death was problematic, yet still chose to trust Sophia. After my sister died tragically to let her stay. But in this life, you still preserve her reputation. Previous life and this life, everything just repeats like this. How can I not hate you? Why shouldn't I hate you? Marcus was silent for a moment, then took my sword. He stepped closer to me. My sword was already pressed against his neck, creating a wound, but his footsteps didn't stop. Luna, did you experience something I don't know about? That night I couldn't leave the manor, but Sophia died that very night. A man wearing purple clothes, languidly fanning himself, suddenly appeared. His phoenix eyes narrowed as he said, "Why, Ziwan, are you performing some tragic love drama?" Before finishing his words, the folding fan in his hand had already shot toward me at extreme speed. Though I reacted in time, I still couldn't dodge. But the pain I imagined didn't occur. Marcus had shielded me, raising his hand to catch the folding fan. The fan handle struck his sword-wielding hand, wounding him. Blood dripped onto the fan's surface like plum blossoms blooming in white snow. Third Prince, what brings you here late at night? The man in purple was Theodore Xiao, the current emperor's half-brother from a different mother. Theodore didn't answer. His gaze stopped on me, circling once as he said, "I didn't notice before that you're also an infatuated fool. Someone else puts a sword to your neck, and you still play hero saving the beauty." Then he leaped over the wall into the Way Manor, as if very familiar with the old path. Marcus said nothing, just grabbed my collar and also jumped over the wall into the manor. "There's a door but you don't use it. You all really have problems. That one has eaten too many elixir pills. His health hasn't been good recently," Theodore said with a natural demeanor, as if not feeling he was saying anything improper. "We've calculated for many years like this. Now there's only 1 month left." Marcus glanced at me, signaling for me to leave first. "Go back, I'll find you later." I hadn't yet responded when Theodore laughed softly. "Ziwan, you're actually protecting her. Relax, you and I have many years of friendship. If Miss Luna is your wife, I won't harm her. It doesn't matter if she hears these things." Though he was laughing, his body emanated an oppressive aura. I'd previously often heard that Third Prince was a romantic person who liked touring mountains and enjoying waters unrestrained. But seeing him with my own eyes now, I finally knew rumors were just rumors. This person absolutely wasn't someone who could be looked down upon. His target wasn't beautiful scenery, but the highest position. So I replied, "Your Highness, I don't need to hear those matters." After thinking for a moment, I continued, "My father is already elderly. Last time when I returned home, he was already calculating about the future. When that time comes, I hope your Highness can provide assistance." Theodore seemed not to have expected I would say this. His fingers lightly tapped the table. After a moment, he chuckled softly. "The Prime Minister's manor finally has someone intelligent." Hearing him say this, I finally breathed a sigh of relief in my heart. I bowed and turned to leave. Theodore spoke again. "Then let me tell you something you'd want to hear." He turned his head to look at Marcus. "That concubine of yours, surnamed Sue something, she previously met with my 7th brother. The Shadow Guards reported that today she would meet with that old 7th. I had her captured. Found on her person was a letter that you and I had previously exchanged, with your signature. At this timing, we cannot accept any mistakes, so I coldly had her killed." Marcus said nothing. I also didn't turn back to look at his reaction, just feeling everything was absurd and laughable. I had exhausted all my mental efforts wanting to kill that person, yet didn't expect she would die so easily. Returning to my room, I pulled open my clothes and discovered the scar had completely vanished. My skin was smooth and clean as if no mark had ever been left. When the scar disappears is when karma dissipates. In my previous life, those who killed my sister had all died. But what about Marcus? I felt somewhat puzzled, but no one could answer me. The next day, I was the messenger bringing news to the general's manor. My father's whole life he only wanted to be a loyal minister, but he had been loyal to the wrong subject, which is why in the previous life he fell into the outcome of our whole family dying tragically. In this life, I wouldn't let him follow that same doomed path. Outside the general's manor, the political situation changed dramatically in just an instant. 1 month later, the current emperor passed away. Because he had no sons to succeed him, the various princes began stirring, looking for opportunities. At this time, Marcus led 300,000 flying cloud cavalry to stand on third Prince Theodore Xiao's side. Thus Theodore smoothly ascended to the position of supreme ruler, and my father smoothly resigned from the position of prime minister and retired to his hometown. The day father retired, I went home. My sister had also returned. The three of us sat gathered together around a hot pot. Father even took out precious wine that had been stored for 20 years. My sister suddenly sighed. Life like this is truly good. Father silently sipped his wine and also sighed. Indeed, truly good. In this moment, perhaps it was the steam from the hot pot rising that made my eyes involuntarily moisten. Afraid father and my sister would discover this, I hurriedly raised my wine cup and said to the two of them, "Then let's all drain a large cup." My sister substituted tea for wine. She carried a gentle smile, placing my hand on her small belly. "Luna, you're about to have a little niece. Later there will be one more person to love you." At that moment, I seemed to hear the sound of fireworks exploding outside the window, brilliantly dazzling to the extreme. That night, I began dreaming of my previous life again. Like an old story, in the end everyone would meet their destined outcome. In my previous life, His Majesty learned through Grace's transmitted information that Marcus was in contact with Third Prince. He calculated to use the opportunity when Marcus was severely wounded on the battlefield to have shadow guards hidden in the general's manor wait for his return to assassinate him. At that time, only my sister was in Serenity Phoenix courtyard with no one else. The shadow guards ambushed there. When Marcus returned to the manor, Sophia told him my sister had contracted venereal disease that couldn't be cured, and my sister's body was still in Serenity Phoenix courtyard. When Marcus arrived at Serenity Phoenix courtyard, the shadow guards planned to suddenly attack. But Marcus had prepared in advance, killing them all with one sword strike. However, he was also seriously wounded. When Sophia came to bandage him, she vaguely mentioned the matter of my sister committing adultery with that person. Marcus looked at the gentle woman before him, was silent for a moment, then opened his mouth to say, "Sophia, the funeral arrangements for Lady Maxwell should still follow the rites for the general's primary wife. You handle it yourself." Afterward, rumors began to spread, saying my sister had contracted disease from loose behavior, leading to Marcus killing her with one sword strike on the day he returned from campaign before even changing out of his armor. In the dream, the images gradually blurred. At this time, I seemed to hear my sister's voice. I turned my head and saw her waving at me, saying, "Little sister, come home." When I woke up, the sunlight was already high and brilliant. A year passed as quickly as flowing water. New Year's Eve approached. Snow fell from the sky. The general's manor hadn't had such a lively atmosphere in a long time. "Afu, hang that lantern a bit higher. Paste more couplets, add some on the left side, that way it will look more symmetrical." When Marcus returned to the manor, he saw me biting into fruit with one hand while vaguely directing everyone's work with my mouth. He was slightly stunned. I turned back to look at him. "Are you coming to help or not?" By evening, the snow gradually stopped falling. The moonlight was bright as if washed clean, illuminating everywhere. After the servants brought dishes to the table, they knowingly withdrew, leaving only Marcus and me. I held the wine pot, filling it full for him, then also poured myself a cup. "Marcus, Happy New Year." This was the first time I called his name. He was silent for a moment, then also responded, "Happy New Year." After he finished drinking the cup of wine, I then spoke. "Marcus, previously I once demanded wedding return gifts from you. Now I want to ask, what New Year's gift do you want to give me?" Hearing this, he took out a rabbit-shaped jade pendant that looked very exquisite. The rabbit had an innocent, adorable appearance. I shook my head. "You know it's not this." He brought the jade pendant before me. "Beside me, only you are a rabbit. Take it, Luna. Actually, before we married we had already met." Hearing this, I was somewhat surprised. Except for that night infiltrating the general's manor in my previous life, I didn't seem to have met him anywhere else. Seeing me pondering, he smiled slightly, his face gradually becoming relaxed. "Years ago, I led troops to attack mountain bandits. At that time, I coincidentally encountered a lantern festival. I saw you alone happily appreciating the lanterns. Clearly they were just ordinary lanterns, but I don't understand why you were so happy." Later, some bandits secretly came outside the city. I planned to follow them to find their base. Who knew I would discover you were also there? Afraid you would encounter danger, I planned to show myself to save you. But you had already drawn the short sword from your waist. He paused, not knowing what he remembered, and laughed lightly. By the time I could react, those mountain bandits had already been tied up on trees by you. I had never met a woman like you before, looking reckless but actually free and unrestrained. At that moment I was moved. I liked you. Even if you didn't recognize me, I already had feelings for you. Marcus originally spoke little. Today he told so many stories, not knowing if it was because of the wine or not. For Marcus, that lantern festival was just last year's matter. But for me, it was a story that had passed through 2 lifetimes. I had witnessed my sister die tragically, seen the Maxwell family exterminated. Though those matters couldn't be completely blamed on him, they were all related to him. So even if there were once small ripples in my heart for him, they weren't enough to make me speak out. Marcus, the New Year's gift I want is a divorce letter. 3 years passed quickly like shadows by the window. After divorcing Marcus, I began traveling again, admiring famous mountains, watching mists swirl around, going to see lantern festivals everywhere. Everything seemed just like my previous life when nothing had happened at home. Except that my chest still occasionally ached faintly. Clearly the scar had healed, but the feeling was very strange. The new emperor implemented reforms, changing the long-existing corrupt practices. The common people's lives became increasingly prosperous. While Marcus guarded the borders year after year, neighboring countries didn't dare invade. On my travels, I often heard people praising them. Storytellers also often recounted stories about their military achievements. Even children in the fields loved to listen. One day, I met again the old Taoist, the one who had given me the jade dagger in my previous life. I thought in this life he wouldn't remember me, but he said, "Young lady, this old Taoist once reminded you, if you obsess too deeply, karma will end early." Though the scar is gone, the jade dagger remains. I instinctively lowered my head to look at my chest. The old Taoist stroked his sparse beard and said, "You cannot see it, but it's still there." Having said that, he then turned and left. I wasn't too concerned. If I couldn't see it and couldn't pull it out, then just let it remain as it was. On my sister's daughter's 3rd birthday, I returned to the capital. Apart from when she was just born and I held the baby once, I hadn't seen her again since. But the little one was especially attached to me, like a small pearl with a gentle voice calling me, "Auntie," making my heart feel all soft inside. That evening, the little one cried, wanting to sleep together with me. My sister propped her hands on her hips, calling the little one by her full, Lily lie. "Mother will punish you. Auntie just returned, don't bother Auntie." I laughed and stopped my sister. "It's fine." In the evening, little Lily sat obediently on the bed waiting for me, her eyes bright and clear. "Auntie, you've come." I smiled and approached, asking, "Are you sleepy?" The little one shook her head, kissed me, then pointed at my chest. "Auntie, there's something here that can be pulled out for you." Hearing this, I felt shaken in my heart. I watched the little one. She raised her hand as if picking a lotus stem, then the little one's small hand touched my chest and paused, as if truly pulling out the invisible jade dagger. Then the little one pressed her small face close to my chest, gently coaxing, "Auntie, be good, no pain." I felt tears overflow. From then on, my chest never hurt again. Another year passed. At the Ping City Lantern Festival, people came and went extremely lively. I sat in a roadside tea house. Beside me were several people discussing this year's lantern styles. I heard this year there's a very large rabbit-shaped lantern, 3 stories tall. Really or fake? I heard it was specially commissioned by a noble for his wife, because he knows his wife loves watching lanterns most. She'll definitely come to see. I raised my teacup for a sip, suddenly feeling very expectant for tonight, when those lanterns would be lit up completely. The story teaches us that revenge cannot erase pain, only forgiveness can liberate the soul. Luna lived an entire lifetime seeking vengeance, but the scar in her heart only truly healed when she let go of hatred. True happiness doesn't come from hurting those who harmed us, but from protecting loved ones and living fully. Sometimes, the bravest thing isn't revenge, but allowing. Don't miss out on incredible stories. Hit subscribe on Panda Tale channel today, and let us transport you to fascinating worlds filled with romance, mystery, adventure, and unforgettable characters.